가입하고 신하시입니다. 저는 지금 이렇게 맑은 공기에 가슴까지 시원해지는 계룡시 무상사에 와 있는데요. 국사봉의 자랑인 이것은요 600여 년 전에 무학대사께서 이 자리에 나라의 스승인 국사들이 많이 날 것이다 라고 이렇게 예언을 하셨는데요. 이 예언만큼 실제로 여기서 세계 각국에서 오신 스님들이 많이 계십니다. 자, 그분들이 어떤 분들인지 궁금하시죠? 저와 함께 보시죠. 네, 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 반갑습니다.
반갑습니다. So, how can I call you?
대봉 스님.
대봉 스님. 반갑습니다.
예, 반갑습니다.
My name is Alpago.
알파고.
Yes, this is robot name.
Ah, nice to meet you.
It's very famous robot name in Korea. That's why people confuse me with robots.
You're not robot. I can tell them.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to go down to the sunpong?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah,
please,
we meet
please
the other
introduce
students.
me. Okay, let's go.
Let's go.
여러분, 저 지금 제 곁에는 세 분의 스님이 계시는데요. 딱 봐도 한국인 같지는 않으세요. 그리고 여러분이 이 말을 듣고 너도 한국 사람 아닌데 라고 하실 텐데 전 한국인입니다. 여러분, 저 기화했습니다. 그리고 제 이 세 명의 스님에 대해서 좀 약간 알고 싶은데요. 그분들의 자기소개를 듣기 전에는 일단 제 자기소개를 하자면 제 이름이 알파고이고요. 저는 거의 20년 전에 터키의 동부지역 아라라산에서 태어났고 여기 왔습니다. 그리고 이렇게 방송 활동하고 있는데요. 이제 저에 대해서 이렇게 강력한 소개를 했는데 이제 우리는 스님들에 대해서 좀 알고 싶습니다. 혹시 좀 자기소개 해주실 수 있으세요? 그 고향이 어딘지 그런 식으로.
My name is Daebong. I'm from the United States, and it's very nice to meet you.
My name is Chonmun, and I was born in Poland, but I lived for a long time in America, so now I'm in Korea, so I'm not sure which country you can assign to me, but right now we are in Gyeongsan, Musangsa.
My name is Myonghwa. I'm also from Poland, and I live in Korea.
지금 맛보기였는데요, 여러분. 이따가 조금 더 깊은 이야기를 하겠습니다. 지금 우리가 있는 이곳은요, 무상사 국제송원 스님들께서 수행하시는 선방인데요. 저 이제 터키 출신 사람인데도 여기 오자마자 갑자기 좀 약간 너무 기분이 평화스러워졌거든요. 이제 아마 이 스님들의 이제 수행 덕분인 것 같은데요. 스님들이 어떻게 생각하세요? 느낌은 어떠세요? How is feeling at here?
I'm happy to sit next to you.
Thank you very much.
Gyeongsan's a wonderful place, so I feel very fortunate to live in a temple here, for sure.
평소에 어떻게 수행하시는지 좀 약간 궁금하는데요.
Very important is what are you doing right now? If you see your situation clearly, just do it. So we do lots of things together: bowing, chanting, sitting, eating, working, talking, greeting people who come and who want to know something about the Buddhist practice or talk about some personal thing. And that's what we do.
So I don't stay here in Musangsa all the time, but I come here often for meditation retreats. In Musangsa, like any other traditional Korean temples, we have 3 months meditation retreats in the winter and in the summer. And during those retreats, we keep silent. we don't talk, except when we have some job to do or some functional talk. And in this case of taking part in the retreat, your personal feelings are not so important. But one feeling here, which is kind of pervading this space, it's really strong, trying mind and feeling of practice. And that's the big value of this place. People want to come here because it's easy to practice together. And that's why I also like to come here to practice. So feelings come and go, but the energy here is very important, this together practice which we do, and that's the main thing for me, and I am pretty sure for many people who come here.
Thank you. 명환 선생님, I'm going to change a little bit our question. What is the difference in meditation at here and then at another temple?
So in Musangsa, we're trying to practice the way our teacher, Sung San Sunim, was established.
Yes.
Which is a little bit different than actually is done in traditional Korean temples, where the Sunims practice in Sompans. We're doing more like we have variety of practices through the day, while in Korean Sompans is mainly sitting meditation. If it's in a group, because individually people do also like just Kido practice. But we do everything like together. We getting up in the morning, we do 108 prostrations, then we do the chanting, and then we do the sitting. We have some working period, we have some rest, then we sit, and in the evening we do also chanting again, and we sit. So there is like a variety of practices, so we can accommodate people who practice for a very long time, also people who come for the very first time actually, because it's set up in some way that even people who are coming in the beginning, they can do it. But in Korean Sompans, usually emphasizes on sitting during Kyolche, and it takes lots of effort actually and experience to do it easily. And we have, when we practice here, we have lots of teaching. Twice a week we have interviews with our teachers, like with the Bong Sunim. We go and he checks our practice and gives some more encouragement. But I never really practice in Korean Sompan, but what I know, that's usually you don't have this type of meetings with the teachers.
Okay, thank you very much. 이제 국적도 다양하게 많은 스님들이 여기에 계신다고 들었는데요. 어떤 분들이 계신지 지금 여기 3명만 계시는데 사실 이분들보다 더 많은 분들이 여기 계시거든요. 이분들에 대해서 좀 약간 알고 싶은데요. 이제 대봉선사께서 좀 소개 좀 해주시죠.
Usually we have, on the non-retreat times, about 20 people living here, Korean and foreign, and we have people from all over. In Europe, Russia, Poland, Ukraine, Czechia, sometimes Slovakia, Germany, Spain, France, England, any place, America, Canada, Mexico, in Asia, from Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Australia. Our teacher spent about 30 years traveling constantly around the world and was based in the United States close to 30 years of that time, teaching how to practice Zen Buddhism, Sunbogyo, and how to use that to make your daily life better, how to be clearer. Buddha taught very simply, your mind makes your life. And if your mind's not clear, if it's filled with desire, anger, and ignorance, you're going to make a lot of suffering for yourself and others. So our teacher was very good at connecting with people from any society and teaching what we talk about as the bone of Buddhism. And he, of course, wanted us to connect with the roots of where he came from in Korea. And he made this we practiced and lived in Korean temples for quite a while, but before he passed away, he made this temple that can be a home for our international style teaching.
오케이, thank you very much. 이제 어떻게 보면 여기 이제 중심에는 숭상행원 대선사가 계시는데요. 그래서 한 명씩 물어보고 싶어요. 어떻게 만나게 됐는지요? How did you meet with 숭상 스님 first time?
I first met him in March of 1977. I was very interested in meeting a Buddhist master, and because I felt that Buddhist teaching should, if it relates to the truth, it's not hindered by culture. And so I wanted to meet a teacher who lived in America, and I went looking. I didn't know about him, he had lived in the United States 5 years already when I met him, and he was a great teacher who really knew how to connect with people. And he encouraged his students to make centers where people can come and learn to practice and even live together if they wanted to. And I went looking for some Buddhist centers, and I met him at that time. And for me, I connected very quickly with him. And really, he became my teacher that first weekend of meeting him. And that hasn't changed.
Thank you very much. How about you, 정원 스님? How did you meet 숭상 스님 first time?
So I met Zen Master Sungsan when I grew up in Poland, and I met him there. Poland at that time was communist country. I was pretty young. I was 20 when I said the first retreat. He couldn't get to Poland at that time because communist government refused him visa. I met him the following year. But prior to meeting him, I read this book, Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, which was already translated into Polish, and I really liked it. So I decided I really want to try and practice. And then when he came in 1981, I already took a precepts, Buddhist precepts, and he gave us the names, kind of not in person. Another monk was representing him, American monk. So I was already his student, but I met him a year later. And then I remember this book was very important for me. I really liked this teaching style, which was very down to earth, and he didn't make Buddhism into anything special. It was really connecting with our daily life. And the life in Poland at that time was very stark. So there was not much. Everything was rationed. We had tickets for everything, for all the basic food and gasoline and anything. You had to have tickets in order to buy it. So there was no color, the life was very gray at that time. So this Buddhist practice and practicing with our mind, it was very alive and actually had a big meaning for us. So when he came, I remember my first meeting with him face to face was during the private interview. And I remembered many Zen dialogues between famous Zen masters or between Zen Master Sungsan and his students, which were written about in this book, Dropping Ashes on Buddha. And I went to the interview and all that stuff was in my head. So he asked me some simple question, and I remember everything got kind of mixed up in my head, and I mumbled some answer, and he saw me that I was very nervous. So he took his stick, he hit my knee, and he said, "Calm down, calm down." So that was my first face-to-face meeting. But after that, it just continued, and really I knew that he was my teacher from that time on. So.
Thank you very much. So how about you, Myung-ha S님? How did you meet with Sungsan S님 first time?
When I started practicing in Poland, actually, I just heard about him from people in Zen Center. So I went there and they told me this is Korean Zen. And then I start to go there for practice and they talk about Seung San Sunim. I had like I didn't have any specific expectation or idea who he is. They told me he's coming every year practically, but that year he wasn't coming and actually he stopped coming already. So I keep practicing in Zen Center, but I never met him there until I came to Korea actually. So when I came to Korea, I didn't have any specific like private interaction because that time Seung San Sunim was already not doing very well. He was older and his body was like not in a very good condition. He was pretty sick. So his interactions with people were limited. So I didn't have like personal like interviews with him, like for example Chonmon Sunim. But I just when I saw him and he was coming, giving us Dharma talks still, and I must say I didn't expect anything, but I felt extremely inspired when I met him, and he was like kind of like a general. When he walked, it was like very energetic, like just go straight, like he's.
각자의 종교도 있을 텐데 어떻게 불교 수행이 시작하는지도 궁금하는데요. 한 명씩 소개해 주세요.
Yeah, for myself, I was born in 1950, a very good period for America, for most of the people in America, not everybody. And my family was Jewish, Yutean. And I grew up what's called Reform Jew, which is very wide, very liberal, modern style. And but my family was religious. We went to synagogue regularly. We gathered for the holidays, and for me it was interesting because there was no hindrance moving from the way I was raised in Judaism into practicing Buddhism, because both of them were devoted to how do you live your life right now. And can you become a person, be a person who actually is beneficial to everybody, to others? Can you leave the world a better place than when you entered it? And it's very focused on life now. Even as a Western religion, the way I grew up, we didn't talk much about heaven or hell. That wasn't important. What's important is how you behave now. And that's what Buddha was teaching. And you got to get to know yourself and know your own mind, the way you make things, color things, think and behave. And then you can live in a way that's better for you and others. So there was no hindrance. And even my brothers have said, you've done so many different things in your life, but it seems like it's always been one straight direction. Yeah, so I think the way I was raised fit right into what at least Seung San Sunim was teaching. And my parents met him and visited the Zen Center. And after my father tried to prove that he was no good, and Seung San Sunim answered his questions very well, the next day my father said, oh, he's a real spiritual person. And they didn't particularly worry about me learning from him.
So how about your relatives? Because I know Jewishism, like at the same time, ethnical religion. You know, if I wanna be convert to Jewishism, my mom must be Jewish. So
yeah.
How about your relatives? They didn't say you traitor?
No. You know, it's so interesting. One time after I was a monk, my mother on the telephone, because I always visited, I didn't live with my parents after I finished high school. I was a very independent person, but I had good relationship. I didn't even live nearby. But I think I was around 40, and on the phone, my mother one time said to me, you know, we don't like what you're doing. And I said, I know. And then she said, but we love you. I said, I know. And then I said, I'm glad it's not the other way around. You like what I'm doing, but you don't love me. So, because of my practice, I understood how to handle my parents and make them feel respected, appreciated, and relaxed. Like, I had hair down to here when I was 20, which of course my mother didn't like at all. And slowly it went up. And when she saw me after I became a monk, her comment was, we wanted your hair short, but this is too short. So somehow, but I learned through practice how to handle myself and then how to handle them in a way that they felt good. Even if I was doing something, so to speak, very different. Because in terms of personal values of becoming a good person, that wasn't different at all. And so then these outside forms, they became less important. This religion, this country, that country, these clothes or some other clothes, But it took a lot of internal effort that I made in this meditation room, before I even came to Korea, but chanting, bowing, living with others to understand them and make them feel connected to and at peace and satisfied, even if I was doing something outside that looked completely different than they wanted. And I think that's the heart of human life. And that's the purpose of correct religion. But many times we get attached to our particular religion, and then we can't do that.
Thank you. So how about John? You're from Poland, and then I know Poland is really strict Catholic society, and then they think the center of original Catholic is now Poland, and then also the last Pope also from Poland. That's why you put his picture on the Poland banknotes also.
Yeah, I actually, my mother had a picture in her room, in her bedroom, of me meeting the Pope and shaking hands with him, and it stayed in her bedroom. So yes, I grew up Catholic, and I have sinned. I have sinned. I gave that all up. Catholicism was, when I was young, I actually started to get interested in Buddhism and yoga and Eastern kind of spiritual ways. When I was 15, 16, I read as much as I could. It wasn't, things on those topics weren't printed and sold in the bookstores, but they were translated and printed illegally, and I had access to it. So I had interest in that because in Catholic religion, it's a very strong moral teaching. But what was lacking in it for me, or what I was looking for, is kind of authentic meditation practice, some practice. And I couldn't find any of that, in it. So in my search, I just continued looking diligently, and I found first transcendental meditation, and I did maybe practice for about a year, but that didn't satisfy me. And then I read this book, Dropping Ashes on the Buddha, and started practice Zen, and that became my way of doing things. In the very beginning, Catholic people, unlike Jewish people, they have a deeply rooted sense of guilt. I'm unworthy. I'm not putting down Catholic religion at all, or the teaching of Jesus Christ, but for me it was very difficult in the very beginning how to do it. Before I was taking precepts with Zen Master Seung San, Buddhist precepts, I had a lot of fighting inside. But once I took the 5 precepts, it all went away. It all went away. And because Buddhism is very interesting religion. It has no God. It has no God. Buddha was a human being like you and me, like any one of us. And he had this big question about what is this life about? What am I? What is the essence of this person who they called Prince Siddhartha? And then he started to practice, his mind opened, and then he taught other people this way. So it's strange religion. It's actually based on practice, and then how it applies in our daily life. So also what helped me in this transition was Zen Master Seung San always was saying the outside form of the religion is not important. Where it leads to is important. So using this metaphor of the mountain peak, if you go, no matter which side you go, no matter which path you take, if you walk and make an effort, you come to the same point. So that wasn't difficult. It was difficult for my mom.
but after shaking, it's gonna be
No.
more easy.
I actually shook Pope. Yeah, I was already practicing Zen at that time. I was in Rome, and I went on a trip from my university, and I was always a little bit different from other guys. And the Pope was shaking my hand, and he asked me, "Are you also from Catholic University?" I said, "Yes, Your Holiness." I had long hair, and I looked, my clothes were unusual. So my mom actually was very religious, and she passed away, but she was happy inside that I'm a monk. But why a Buddhist monk? She would prefer if I would become a Catholic monk. So that was her dilemma. But whenever I was coming back to visit her, when I was with her and going for walks, she asked me to put lay clothes on. I obliged. Why not? She was old, and she was happy.
Thank you. So, Myung-ha S님, you are from Poland, and then Poland is conservative society. For example, I can convert to Buddhist, but I'm not supposed to cut my hair because I'm just believer, not I'm monk. But you convert to Buddhist, and then you became monk. This is, I think, more difficult to Poland people, female people. So, how did that change? Can you talk more about that changing time?
Well, it was pretty shocking for my family and friends. So they really didn't know what to think about this. Some of them thought I'm crazy. So they I stopped keeping in touch with me. And after many years, nowadays actually they connect with me very well, and they don't worry about me being crazy anymore. But it took a long time. So it's really different. People in Poland, if they know where is Korea, is good. If they know anything about Korean Buddhism, it's very rare. And if they see somebody wearing this clothes, they have no idea what does it mean. They think you are just strange. And if
you are poor because your clothes is same.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And if you are shaved and if you are a woman, the most common thing is like they think you are sick. You undergoing chemotherapy, for example.
Yes.
So that was the most common, and actually for most people it's very difficult to understand this.
불교로 개종하는 것도 기존에 있는 종교를 좀 떠나고 불교로 개종하는 것도 그렇게 쉬운 일이 아닌데요. 이 스님들은요, 개종뿐만 아니고 스님까지, 즉슨 줄과까지 결정하셨던 분들이에요. 나도 스님 돼야겠다는 그 결심을 어떻게 하시는지를 궁금하는데요. 한 명씩 소개해 주세요.
So like we say, especially in Buddhism, like you have karma. Everybody has certain kind of karma. We are all different. And then so you have union with some people, and you don't have much union with some people, or with some kind of jobs or situations, or you have some interests. So it's pretty much same. Actually, some people have more like affinity with this kind of like monastic life than others. But on a personal level, for me it wasn't difficult actually. It was pretty easy decision to make, because I didn't feel interested in other things very much. I really wanted to practice, And I already, before I came to Korea, I tried to combine working like a normal person and doing lots of practicing, and it didn't work very well. So I knew I have to choose. And if I stay as a like lay person and keep working and living so-called normal life, then I won't be able to practice to that extent as I wanted. And I never had very strong interest in this, like what society offers. So when I came here, and everything I wanted was practice. I met like really wonderful teachers, and that was the best situation for me. And actually came very. It wasn't expected even. I just came as a layperson to sit 3 months Kyolche and was planning to go back home. But I did 3 months retreat and I decided I'm not going back. I just stayed.
So, 전문 스님, how was your decision? How did you get that decision?
Well, in my case, it was not. A little bit similar to what she said. It wasn't any special event in my life. It took me a long time to arrive at this point. I did few things. I started to practice when I was 20, and then I graduated university. I worked a little bit as a psychologist, and then I came to America to Providence Zen Center to practice. So my life already changed. I already kind of left Poland, left my home without becoming a monk, but I still wasn't ready to undertake this life.
So when you study at Catholic universities, you already started Buddhist.
Oh yeah.
practice.
I already was practicing. Actually, when I was studying at Catholic University, me and my friend, we started the Zen Center in this town. So I was already a Sung student. But then, like at the age of 26, my life changed. I came to America to Providence Zen Center. My intention wasn't to stay there or immigrate, was to come there and practice and maybe come back to the Zen Center in Poland. But then my life took few twists and turns. And then eventually it happened so that I did many long retreats as a layperson, and I practiced for a long time in US, mostly, and coming for retreats to Korea. And then eventually it was ripe that there is nothing else to do, actually. Because if you look at it, if you're clear, there is nothing better to do than being a monk. Because then you can actually really help people. You can help people in many ways. You can feed people, you can supply their basic needs, which they need to be met in order for them to actually pay attention and they work with their minds. But really, if you help their mind become clear, that's the best thing you can do. So after a while, it became very obvious for me there is nothing else I can do. It became very clear. So it was then very easy.
Do you have some like funny episode with Susang Snim? Because I think Susang Snim have a big inspiration in your life, and also another Snims. Can you?
I have many, and I'd like
most funny one.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I just can take whatever pops up in my mind. And, you were talking about becoming a monk. I asked him after 1 year, I said, I want to become a monk, and a Sanim. And he said, why? And I shouted, why not? I was like 27 or 26, but I was like a 4-year-old boy. And he said, no, why is very important. And he gave me very good teaching. And many instances appeared that touched me deeply with him. One of the first things he said to me during a formal student-teacher interview, brought down to a very short sentence, was your substance, shilche, your substance, anybody's substance, the table substance, the substance of the sun, the moon, the stars, all universal substances, the same substance. And I remember a thought that appeared inside me at that time. I've been waiting my whole life to hear that. To me, that's the heart of everything. If we realize that, we can get compassion, wisdom, find how to live this life. But there were infinite ways in which he struck me. I can just say what appears as we talk. One time I was in Paris, and he sent me there to help make a Zen center. And there was a teacher from another school, and the three of us went out to eat. And of course, I'm the student, so I'm just eating and listening to them. They were speaking English at that time. And this other teacher said, "Oh, these students are all junk." And Seung Sansini was just eating soup, and so naturally, he just looked up at her and he said, "Teaching means take junk, make a treasure." And he kept eating, and I thought, wow, you could not say that unless that's how you lived. You didn't check who's good, who's bad, or anything. Anybody appear, help them. Point out the treasure they have. If they find it, they'll become a person who benefits everyone in whatever form is necessary. But I have lots of stories.
Okay, thank you. And Myung-Han, you start at Poland, like Zen Buddhist Center, meditation at there, teaching at there, and then at here in Korea. Same or different?
Actually, same.
Yes.
You ask about practicing in like Zen centers in the West.
Yeah.
So definitely it's like because we go, most people go there just because they want to fix their mind in some way, and they are focused on meditation and just working toward getting clear. But here we do the same thing, but actually it's, if you are, especially if you are monastic and you are living in a temple, so we also, our training is a little wider because in a daily life we have to kind of apply this teaching, because like, you know, when you live in a temple, everything reminds you about practice. So this is like more full application of this teaching possible, and it's easier in some way. When in the West, people go to Zen center, they do their practice, then they go home. They don't have this kind of opportunity, and they learn less about like Buddhist theory than we do here. Yeah.
So Taebong-s님, at this point, I want to ask you, how about here? You are really practice like really traditional Korean Buddhist style, or you are like mixed with another styles?
Seung Sansini gave an interview, I think, to one of the Korean TV stations about more than 20 years ago. And they asked him, "You've been the most successful Korean Sanim to teach around the world, outside Korea. How did you spread Korean Buddhism?" And his answer is very interesting. He said, "Every country has its own culture, and every country is proud of and loves its culture. If I only taught Korean Buddhist culture, I would have very few students. I taught the bone of Buddhism, then each country will make its own, flesh." Just like Indian and Chinese Buddhism came to Korea, then mixed with Korean culture, then Korean Buddhism appeared. The root of Korean Buddhism is fantastic, but don't expect people to follow the cultural forms. That was developed by Koreans. Now, Seung Sansini used those, but in a way that really connects to modern everyday life. That's important. Otherwise, who wants to follow forms? What I notice is Westerners who practice Buddhism, become Sanims in Korea, in Korean temples, have a very hard time returning to their own culture. Because They learn a way of practicing and living Buddhism that is dependent on the Korean Buddhist culture around it. But if you learn the heart of what Buddha's teaching, even if you have the Korean forms, but you've got the heart, when you go to other countries, you can adapt it according to the situations. And that's what Seungsan S님 did. He was concerned that Korean Buddhism, as he once said, is like an old tree, difficult to grow new shoots. So he said, I cut a piece, take it to the West, particularly a country like America that had almost no traditions. Many cultures end up there. Now they have a problem, but sometimes they mix and produce something good. He said, I plant it over there. Very modern style of Buddhism grows from this piece of the root, and then I bring some of it back to Asia, to Korea and China, and maybe it helps something fresh and alive that uses Buddha's teaching to address the basic issues of human life now. So I think he used Korean forms and clothes and chanting and so forth because he was from Korea, but he wasn't trying to turn people into a different culture. He was trying to widen people's minds and through the use of Buddhist practice, but the real practice is reflecting back on yourself. And if you don't use these things to reflect back on yourself, see your own opinions, your own conditioning, your own likes and dislikes, your attachments to your ideas, your culture, your family, your body, you will not become clear.
When you're studying Korean Buddhism, for example, 2 years ago, I was working at Korean Buddhist TV. I have radio shows at there, and then sometimes it was difficult, even I can speak Korean, but some Korean Buddhist word is difficult to pronounce. Sometimes it was difficult to me. So how about you? When you studying Korean Buddhism, it was easy or difficult, especially some specific words?
Actually graduated Kangwon, which is the Pomosa Sungadeha. I became Sunim after Seungsan S님 passed away.
Oh.
So my Unsa Sunim is Korean Sunim. So he sent me to Kangwon. But I asked him before my novice monk precepts, I would like to go to school and study Korean. And his answer was very simple, 필요 없어.
Oh,
필요 없어.
Yeah.
And he said, you go to Korean temple, you'll learn monk's life. And this monk's life and this teaching is not dependent on words.
Yeah.
This is actually a really good question because over there, the name of this institution is Kangwon. Kang means lecture, won is center. So it all a lot of words. Yeah. And Korean monks use in their teaching a lot of Hancha, Hanmun.
Yes.
So a lot of, and Pulgyo Hancha is not the everyday Hancha often, it's different words. But essence of this teaching and of this practice was not words. Yeah. It was together action, acting together with other people, and not holding any opinion on your own. If you had opinion, don't get attached to it. If you get attached to it, it will be a problem. If you don't, there is harmony when you act together. So that's the basic of this training. So I went through this, when I came to Kangwon, Kangju Sunim, who could speak some English, he asked me several times, 전문 선생님, 힘들지요? 힘들어요? I said, 아니요, 스님, 안 힘들어요. And he looks at me like, I said, 생각이 있으면 아주 힘들어요. 생각 없으면 쉬워요. So it was it was very easy without words. Words are not necessary. If the words were necessary, Seungsan S님 would ask us first to study Hancha, Pulgyo, Buddhist language. No, it wasn't. Even when I became his student, he was talking always, he was saying together action, together action, together action. It's not based on words and understanding. So it's very interesting. If you focus only on words, then you become a scholar, you know. But that's not what the practice is about.
Thank you very much for very wisdomful. 스님들이랑 같이 이렇게 말씀을 나누다 보니까 시간이 이렇게 빠르게 갈 줄 몰랐는데 미래에 대한 계획이 어떠세요?
Hello to everybody who's watching this now. Mangong Sanim at the end of World War II made this calligraphy, the whole world's single flower. The teaching is that everything in this world is one flower, different parts of it, and it would be crazy to tear those parts apart. And then Sung San Sanim lived a life trying to actually make that happen in relationships between people. If you find yourself angry, greedy, be careful and look inside. What is it that you're making and holding? Actually, we're complete inside. And if you realize that, you can see all these parts of the world are one flower. And it would just be crazy to tear it apart, just like you don't cut off your arms, you don't pull out your eyes. This world can live together with others, and even if the outside world doesn't, if you realize that inside, you can make a wonderful flower wherever you are.
Hello everybody, and we talked for a while about our practice here in Korea. Our faces are foreign, not Korean. We are not Koreans. So outside form and name are always different. And not only different, they appear and disappear and they always changing. But what is it which is not changing, which is never changing, never gets born and never dies? This is actually an important thing to figure out for everybody. If human beings generally, if we wake up to this question, if we pay attention to it, if we try to find the answer, this world truly will become a single flower. Thank you.
Important to understand, like the Bongsun mentioned before, like main Buddhist teaching means like your mind make your life. So if we really look at ourselves, we can reconnect to what we call our true nature or Buddha's nature, which basically is just wisdom and compassion. We already have it. Everybody have it. It's not something that is outside of us. So and that's the part that connects us all. So if you look at our own, like we turn our attention inside, we can see who we are, what is not real. Our thinking is not real. We have this like really difficult situation in the world. There is war going on, not only in Ukraine, in other places also. There is lots of violence, lots of suffering. But this thing's actually just starting in our mind. It's not just something that happens outside. We all starting these wars in our mind. With other people, we fight with ourselves, within our own kind of mental space. So it's very important to just look at this and understand this is where everything starts, and this is where you can really find real peace. And this peace from you will go out. It will affect people around you and hopefully this whole world.
계룡사 무상사에서 보내드린 세계는 한송의 곳, 여러분 어떠셨습니까? 세 분의 스님과 함께 솔직하고 깊은 대화, 그 꽃 향기처럼 제 마음에 오랫동안 남을 것 같은데요. 여러분 모두가 꽃 한 송이처럼 아름다운 존재라는 걸 기억하시기를 바랍니다. 여러분 행복하세요. 고맙습니다.